Steve Langone is an accomplished drummer. He has performed with many of the top names in music today: George Garzone, Jerry Bergonzi, Greg Osby, Rufus Reid, Miguel Zenón, David Hazeltine, Antonio Sanchez. The list really goes on. He has an amazing array of performance credits. He has also released 4 recordings as a leader: Finders Keepers, 6, Steve Langone Group, and Breathe. Steve can also be found on over 50 recordings as a sideman. Steve teaches at the University of Rhode Island, Wellesley College, and he has also taught at Berklee College of Music. In addition to this, he's conducted plenty of national clinics, and he is the author of Advanced Rhythmic Concepts for the Modern Drummer, Volume 1 and 2. And he's also endorsed by Bosphorus Cymbals, Vic Firth Drumsticks, and Canopus Drums. Steve, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Well, I am so excited. And also, I should mention a good friend, Christopher Dzengelewski, is on the broadcast. How are you doing, Chris?
I'm well.
Great. I'm so glad we have 2 master drummers here. But they're so modest, of course. But, I mean, 2 master drummers. I'm so excited to ask them about everything to do with the drums, rhythmic concepts. And it's going to be a phenomenal thing. I'm going to learn so much. So let's get started, absolutely. So, Steve, your book is Advanced Rhythmic Concepts for the Modern Drummer. So why did you write the book?
Wow, that is a great question. I wrote the book kind of for selfish reasons, because I knew if I gave myself a project like writing a book, it would force me to set goals.
That's a great thing to do.
And I was curious about certain rhythmic things that were, I was performing in bands, and they were giving me music that I was struggling with. I couldn't hear certain rhythms the way I wanted to, and I wasn't as comfortable. So I decided to make up exercises and relate them to familiar exercises that I already knew. So books, yeah, that's what prompted it. Is really kind of to help me become a better drummer and set goals for myself.
It's an absolutely phenomenal book, and I encourage anybody who's very serious about the drums to pick it up. But let's take quite a few steps back. Now, you mentioned these groups that you were playing with. Could you talk a little bit about them? So, which groups were they, and what were they doing rhythmically that you said you weren't getting?
Okay, well, at the time, this was a few years ago when I was writing the books, but I had at the time. It started really around working with a band called Clave, which is Rebecca Klein on piano, Fernando Huergo on bass, Hilary Noble on congas and flute and tenor saxophone. And we had been composing music together. I think there's one record on Zoho Records that's out of New York, and we did another release. And the music that Rebecca was writing and we were coming up with as a group had a lot of different rhythms combined with Afro-Cuban and Brazilian rhythms. And so that was one of the groups. Another musician that I was writing music and still write music with and play with a lot is a piano player. He lives in New York now. His name's Kevin Harris. And I play on a few of his records. And at the time we were really working with different rhythms, and so this was kind of helping me, and also for my own. The books were also meant to help strengthen my internal clock or my pulse.
Right.
So that's pretty much how it started.
Okay, so I'm kind of. You mentioned a few things there. You mentioned Afro-Cuban, and
yep.
So for people who are not familiar, our Western music and the music that we listen to typically has a very standard. It almost is. It's literally called common time, right? And what does that mean, common time?
Common time means 4/4 time or 4 beats to a measure.
Okay.
And it's very it's in our ears all the time, so we naturally.
And that is if a measure is just a space of time, right? Like a bar. And so when we have common time, that means 4 beats. In the bar. So 4 beats of quarter notes, right?
That's correct.
Okay,
That's
so, and just a quick question. What does cut time mean? I hear that too.
That's a great question. Cut time means that you would, it looks like 4/4, it's the same, but you would count it or feel it in a way that would be twice as fast.
Right.
So for example, I mean, without getting too technical, it's actually...
you can be technical. Don't worry. Go ahead.
Okay.
Be technical.
Basically, in my experience, it's easier to read some passages in cut time if they're going by faster.
Okay.
If they're going by slower, it's
What's an example of a song that typically would be like in cut time? Maybe a standard or something.
A standard in cut time. Well, that's
a lot of marches.
Marches. Is that what it is?
Yep.
That's pretty common. But and you can correct me on this, but like, it's almost kind of like your quarter notes become eighths, and like everything just sort of like, doubles, in a way. So I used to have a lot of trouble reading that because I would start off and I would be, they'd be, conducting in two,
Right.
And I'd be like, whoa, what's this? Like, especially with triplets, right?
Right.
And I'm just like, da, 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 da.
Exactly.
So you kind of have to cut it in. You have to cut it in half. Is that what you're saying? You have to cut the time.
Yeah.
Okay. Or do you read twice as fast? I'm not sure if I'm getting it right. Do you read it twice as fast, or do you just count it in 2 beats rather than 4?
For me, it's kind of a mental shift. I mean, Chris, you can say, but for me, if I see, like for example, quarter notes in 4/4 cut time sound like 1 at this tempo, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Okay.
If it was cut time, I would count it like this: 1 and 2 and.
Yeah.
But usually cut time would mean the piece is going by much faster.
Yeah.
As a quick aside, Steve, this is not related to anything, but I just thinking about this. Is the metronome absolutely important? Absolutely.
Yes, it is. There's no way around it.
That's a wrap.
But I mean, I've actually checked out a lot of other drummers, and because I'm always curious, checking out other musicians and drummers to see what they say about what they think about the metronome. And some people say that it can be a crutch, if you rely on it too much. I've heard others say, put the metronome on, make the beat very wide. So if you're practicing something like, don't put it on every beat, put it on every other beat, or once every 4 beats, or put it in between beats. So you can use the metronome in a lot of different ways, not just putting it on beat 1 or on the quarter note pulse.
Right. So you would say it's definitely a great tool to have at the very least, right?
It's a great tool to have. Yeah, but nowadays with computers and sequences, and you can make your own sequences, and you can download tracks and
drumless tracks and stuff.
Drumless tracks,
which are kind of essentially the same thing. It's just you have more subdivisions going on.
Exactly. Playing to records is really important to get the right feel. So you might have a good time, but your feel might not be. It may need work. So
a lot of great drummers have said that they almost exclusively play with records. So it's hard to, I believe, don't quote me on this, but I think Steve Gadd and Dennis Chambers attributed their time to playing with a lot of records, almost maybe more than metronome. But that I always tell my students that too. Like, I guess you got to do that too. So.
Can you have? I was wondering, can you have a bad pulse and just improve it like anything else, or can everybody improve their sense of time?
I think everybody can improve their sense of time, definitely. I mean, Alan Dawson told me this, who was my teacher. He said no one has perfect time. So
that's coming from him too.
That's something I really remember that he said, and
that's great.
Steve, why do I hear these anecdotes of people like having a beat and then going and making eggs and coming back and having the same beat in their head or something like that? Have you ever heard? I think it was Victor Wooten or something.
Yeah, I told him a story about Larry Finn doing that. He's setting a click and then shutting it off, and then we turned it back on, and he was still perfectly in time. With but the ability to kind of just maintain that pulse no matter what is.
Is that unnatural or is that natural to have perfect machine time?
I think it's something you have to work towards. I think we all have to work towards it. But your ear, I think, associating pulse with something that you hear and you know what it sounds like to be in time, I think helps. Also playing for dancers and the visual. I mean, I noticed myself, or hearing a melody in your head. So instead of thinking like dot, 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 or click, from a metronome, you're thinking of a melody, and that will give you good time. That's why it's important for drummers to learn melodies, or for musicians to know melodies.
Yeah.
I always tell my students, like, if you're singing Happy Birthday, it's not like right before the cake comes everybody hands out a chart and goes, okay, it's in 3/4 time. There's a pickup. Happy.
Maybe they should.
No,
we all fall into the
the
same
amazing
tempo,
thing
right?
is most people will be shocked to find that Happy Birthday is actually in 3.
Right, but depends what who you're with. But I think a lot of times you could people fall into a tempo that's that settles. When you get Happy Birthday. So that's just kind of tempo. So tempo will help generate your time as well. I mean, melody will help generate your time.
Is that why is that another reason to revoice not just jazz standards? Like you could even start with like I'm Twinkle Twinkle Little Star or something, but you can like it's a good habit to revoice melodies on the drums too. Maybe marking time with your foot, and that was something a lot of my teachers at Berkeley had me do, revoice the melody of a jazz standard on the drum kit, while marking time.
Absolutely. That melodies have breath in them and phrasing, and you get a lot out of melody dynamics, and you don't have to really think if you're singing it, that's already naturally happening. So
the Omni book too, right?
The Omni book, yeah, the Omni book, Charlie Parker melodies and solos. Bob Galati's really that's his thing. He's done an amazing thing with that.
That's really fascinating. When we think of we're going back to the idea of a pulse and 4/4 and common time. Now, some cultures don't have a so-called common time like we believe. They have a different idea of a pulse, or they have a different way of counting or something. Is that something we're talking about polyrhythms? Could you explain a little bit more?
This blew my mind coming from the Western way of teaching. I'll just give you a brief history and I'll try to make it.
No, please go deep.
Okay.
That's for sure.
Okay. All right. Here's my history. Started playing drums early, just having fun. Had a neighbor who played guitar, and we would jam and we played. We really didn't know what we were doing, and we had a tape recorder, an old school, literally tape. Press play and record. Listen back. And say, oh, we like that. Let's do that section and play again. And we were we were really young. We didn't really know what we were doing. And I wasn't really. We weren't reading music, or we were just trying to make music, copying records, playing to records, and that's really important. Then I started taking lessons, and I was grateful for my lessons, and I learned how to read music. But it was a completely different thing because I could already play much more than I could read, and it's really important to read. But my point is, I learned by ear, and that's really what music is. You're creating sound, you're listening to sound. So a lot of to find out later that there are cultures where the music is, music wasn't written down at first, and it was all memory and hearing.
An oral tradition, perhaps.
Oral tradition, yeah. And so, for example,
even in jazz, that
absolutely in jazz, yeah, absolutely. So a lot of rhythmic. Really interesting, like Afro-Cuban rumba, or African music in general, Brazilian music, Venezuelan music, Indian music. A lot of will have a different feel. Have a different. You can write it down, and people do write it down, but really initially it's the sound. So something I heard this groove, Venezuelan music. It's called I think it's called. Merengue Venezolano, like a Venezuelan merengue, and it's in 5/2. If you're going to count it, it's
5/2. What's that mean?
And I don't even really know. It's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, it's like
5 quarters and an eighth note or something.
Something like that. 5 quarters and an eighth note. Technically
Kim
speaking,
Plainfield mentioned 10.5 once, and I wish I had the transcription. It's something in 10.5.
Yeah, but they're not. From my experience, I mean, I heard these kids playing these guitars, and there was about 20 of them, and it sounded incredible. And they weren't reading music. I mean, it's all by feel and all by Same with the Cuban rumba stuff. That I was in Cuba, and I heard this. We were backstage, and this rumba band was playing. It was the most incredible sounding, and it's not written down. There's a lot of improvisation, but the way the 8 notes are felt, and the way that the beat
different.
is felt,
is that what you're saying? It's completely different.
Absolutely.
Why is Cuba so important? Why is it Afro-Cuban? What happened in Cuba that made Cuba so dominating so much in Latin jazz and that kind of thing?
That's a great question.
Or maybe it's not. I just keep hearing that word all the time, Afro-Cuban. So.
I mean, I've only really just scratched the surface of it, and I'm only familiar with just a few of the styles, but
there's
really
a lot, right? You mentioned a few names there. Why don't you go over a few of them? So like rumba and Afro-Cuban and Venezuelan. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, rumba has three different styles. There's Wawanko, which is probably the most popular, Yambu, and Colombia. And there are dances that go along with it. And the style is traditionally 3 drums, a wawa, which is like a bamboo, and a clave. And it comes from, there's a lot of influences, but like, it's unfortunate, but there was slavery. So the Africans that were taken from the Congo and West Africa were brought to Cuba and Brazil, and
they brought their traditions over musically.
Exactly. Okay. And those traditions grew and flourished into what. And also there was a trade with the States, with New Orleans and Cuba. So, for example, the clave rhythm is ba 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 ba. That's son. It's called son clave, son 3/2 clave. That rhythm is found in early rock and roll. Ba ba da ba da ba 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 da 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 da. And that rhythm's
that's
Cuban.
Fascinating. Now is there a name for that? That 3/2 or 2/3 thing?
Yeah, 3/2 son clave.
Okay.
SON. Yeah.
Is that unique, or can we even find that in Western classical music, or that the idea of a polyrhythm? So is a polyrhythm originating from Africa, or is it maybe from different, independently created from different areas of the world?
That's a great question.
We saw in classical music too.
I would say it. Yeah.
I think we should demonstrate. Is that like that's like the kind of Afro-Cuban, sort of baseline, like.
That's really good. Wait, could you describe? So what was that exactly?
That's Chris laying down some sick piano, man. And at the same time.
Eventually, the bembe too.
And he's also playing the bell pattern, the 6/8 bell pattern.
He's been reading that book, that infernal Advanced Rhythmic Concepts for the modern drummer.
Right.
He's getting monsters.
That's right.
You're just selling away your secrets, Steve. I'm telling you. But anyway, Steve, let's go back. So we're scratching the surface of polyrhythms now, right? With 3/2, is that what's like basic? Is that even a polyrhythm, or is it just a basic imposition of a rhythm?
Okay, 3/2 is refers to a clave, a repetitive rhythmic pattern, and it's like the key to the music. Like from the clave, you have other rhythms that relate all to that rhythm, and the clave. There's basically son clave and rumba clave, and I'm no Cuban expert, but you can feel it. This is, for example, 3/2 son clave.
Okay.
I'll count it in 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3.
That does sound like early rock and roll. It's true.
Yeah, right. I mean, you hear that. That's so common, and you'll hear it so many places. Then there's 3/2 rumba clave, where the third beat is displaced by an 8th note, so it sounds like this.
Do you know what I think is so cool? It's I feel like everybody listening, the audience, everybody's probably heard that before, right? They've probably heard all these things before.
Yes, and you've heard it in grooves. Even that clave can be put in a triplet feel, or a 6/8 feel, or a 12/8 feel as well. I mean, without getting too technical, it's found in it's found in many different pop and rock.
I feel like we've all heard like iterations of that kind of sound. It's fantastic. It's amazing how we subconsciously listen to these things, and it's really cool to know where they come from. So let's take that a little bit further, though. So would you say that's a very basic kind of rhythm, a polyrhythm, so to speak?
Yes, it's very basic, but it's also very deep. If I would suggest your listeners, I'm going to listen to some as much as I can too, is listen to Cuban rumba, and maybe more specifically Wawanko, which is Guaco, Wawanko.
Okay. That's great. Now let's go a bit further then. So what goes beyond that 3/2? What happens after that?
What happens with that with rumba is that the phrasing they feel the I'm no expert again, but the music can be felt in a couple of different subdivisions at the same time. So, for example, what I mean by subdivision is if you have a beat and here's another beat, and so the beats in between sound like taka 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 taka, or it can sound like da 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 da. The Cuban rumba will have that at the same time.
I noticed something you're doing, Steve, as a non-drummer. You're kind of singing subdivisions of that beat. You're kind of splitting it up. Does that make it a lot easier for you? Is that what drummers do typically?
Absolutely, yeah, definitely. You're subdividing, yeah.
So Steve, I got to ask you, what I've been trying to think of a phrase to. What do you call it? What is that? Is that like rhythmic solfege? Is that what you'd call it? Or like, what do you call it?
Yeah, what is that? I've noticed like they teach tiki-taka and that kind of thing. So what is that?
Okay, that leads me to Chris. Nicely done, Nick. Nicely done. That leads to a style of music that I'm just scratching the surface of is South Indian classical music, and the solfege language is called Konnakol.
I've heard of that. Yeah.
And basically, Konnakol, it's a very deep kind of music, and if you can listen to, if you Google Konnakol, there's so many great tabla players. Tabla is the instrument you play. That's if you sing and then, okay, edit this out. Okay, let me. Okay, take two. So, Konnakol. So it's South Indian classical music,
right?
And I would recommend you listen to that and check out. And again, I'm just scratching the surface, but essentially, you asked about the what I was singing, what the subdivisions, takita and all that. It comes from that. So, for example, 1 would be ta, 2 would be taka, 3 would be takita, 4 would be takadimi, and so stringing these together to create different rhythms. This is different, much different than Cuban rumba. It's totally different.
Wow, it's so interesting that you can have two separate cultures that they both subdivide, and they do. In fact, I have a little bit of understanding of Konnakol. They have very minute subdivisions, almost 32 beats or something, 30 second beats.
It's incredible, and it's very, 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 very different feel. And when I started to get into that, that's basically, I'll tell you in a nutshell that my books, both books, are basically my studies with Alan Dawson, his methods, which were really infinite, but I honed it down to maybe 26 different ways of him teaching me, and I applied his teachings to Konnakol, basically. So I used the Konnakol syllables and different kinds of groupings with Konnakol. So that's basically what my books are about.
That's interesting. Now, Chris mentioned earlier something called metric modulation. Now, that seems like a scientific term almost. What does that mean, actually?
Metric modulation is when you have a pulse, like a beat, and another beat will happen on top of that to create another pulse. And it's related metrically to the pulse that you just were at.
So, like previous
you have two pulses going, seemingly different tempos?
Yeah.
It creates an illusion, but it's the same tempo. That's the most important thing, right? That it's the same tempo, theoretically.
Right.
Because otherwise you're just... And that's the thing that's really important to maintain is that original tempo, because that's the real true value in that. And you had mentioned this because I went to Steve and I said, Steve, I saw him playing with a student group with Dan Fox years ago. And the guy, I could tell just from the first 5 seconds, this guy was the real deal, right? And I went up to him, and I was kind of into Mark Giuliano and all these guys, and he said, "Oh, that's interesting because I'm writing this book, And I remember just asking him, like, really, I feel like my biggest issue is I want my time to be better. And he had mentioned this. He goes, "Well, obviously you're pretty dialed in. You're practicing with a click and everything. But what about this? What about trying to see if you can still stay in time when you've modulated? So now the click is kind of syncopating with you, right? And that's really hard to do. That's like the next level.
Yeah. I mean, it's something to I think we all can work on forever.
I'm still not getting. Maybe if you guys could explain it again, the metric modulation.
Okay.
So you've got a pulse. You've got one pulse going, right? Let's say you have just your standard metronome is going. So what else is happening at the same time?
Okay, so I'll try to give you an example. Can I just do the claps? Can I practice for 1 second?
Sure.
Okay. Taki ta taki 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 takati 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 takati.
That's really so. Wait, so you're saying you're not actually changing the tempo with that extra pulse, right? I'm seeing that it's so cool. I think I've heard some of this before, where it's that the drummer seems like he's changing, but he's not really, right?
Yeah. What? So okay. So what? This is like.
This is some high-level stuff. This is some high-level stuff.
It is. So basically. An exercise that you could do, or that I try to do myself, is it's not really related to any amount of measures or pulse. It's just, first of all, play triplets or count takita. So subdivide in a 3-note grouping like this. So takita, 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 takita. So you get this beat going, takita, takita. Now that subdivision, keep the same subdivision. Da 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 takita 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 takita, but try to say or plug in the syllables for 4, which is takadimi. So it's going to sound like this. So I'll first start with the 3, and then I'll go to 4. Takita 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 takadimi 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 takadimi.
Oh, I see. Okay, I get it now. Now I'm starting to get it. Yeah. So
that's it. Yeah, that's the clip. That's the take.
I'm getting it now, and the thing is, it's like
this is the most advanced, some of the most advanced stuff you can do rhythmically. So it makes sense that it's a little bit.
Yeah, I get it now. So you actually have it's kind of like an accent that is. You're placing an accent on a different part of the bar each time.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
that's it exactly. Yeah. Where you place the accent, because the subdivisions are the same, but where you place the accent, and the syllables will help you do that.
Oh, I see. So that's amazing. And so, wait, let me ask you something. Has this been done at a high level on recordings before? Who are the great drummers who have worked with polyrhythms in this area?
Yeah, well, who have worked with? Well, I guess more specifically with Indian rhythms would be.
Other than yourself, right?
Other than yourself, Steve. Yeah.
Of course, would be Dan Weiss. I've heard him. He's plays tabla incredibly, and he's applied it to the drum set and his music. I've also listened to Treelocker too. Is another amazing percussion player, and then there's Zakir Hussain, who's an amazing percussionist, and Steve Smith. Yeah, Steve Smith's done a lot. Exactly, Steve Smith.
Is there any recording or famous recording that my audience can perhaps look for where they have great examples of this?
With tabla,
or maybe reapplied to the modern drum set? And is there any recording that stands out?
Well, Mahavishnu stuff.
Right? Yeah, Mahavishnu, John McLaughlin, Mahavishnu. You'll hear influences big time. But like for the tabla on the drum set, Dan Weiss has done a record. I think it's called Tintal drum set, and it's really incredible. Also, there's a singer, Lori Kotler, Loricotler. Lori Kotler is a singer, and she's done stuff with Glenn Velez, and you can hear her do vocal percussion with. It's pretty easy to find that.
Glenn Velez is amazing.
So, Steve, this is. Would you say this is the cutting edge of rhythm, pretty much the cutting edge kind of thing?
I think a lot of people are into. You hear it in. Since Mahavishnu really, and Steve Smith has brought it to a lot of people, a lot of drummers. It's in. I think rhythm in general. There's another guy I have to mention is Tigran. I'm going to say I hope Tigran Hamasayan.
Yeah.
And his music is really incredible.
Oh, absolutely.
Rhythmically amazing.
And he plays with Mark Juliana as well.
Now, Mark Juliana is another guy.
One thing, Steve. rhythm is a very broad topic in a sense, and you can actually, I guess, in an album apply many different concepts in one album. So this it seems like a tough thing to tackle, but when you take like what are the tools in the modern drummer's belt that you would expect nowadays, the modern jazz or modern drummer, that really isn't as common before? Like, let's say we took music from the 50s and 60s. What are things that drummers are now kind of expected to do or doing at a high level that wasn't happening before?
That's a great question. The music has changed so much, and the sound of the drums, the sound of the instrument has changed so much. I noticed that definitely being familiar with odd meters helps.
That's a good launching point. Okay, so odd meters. It's funny, we're going backwards to odd meters when we went through metric modulation, but odd meters.
You missed that. How did you skip over that?
It's because I'm not a drummer. But that's another thing I hear. So an odd meter is like an odd number, right? It's basically not even. It's not 2 or 4. It's like 3 or 5 or 7. And is that typically over like 7/8 or 7/4? Is it typically over an 8, or it could be to any kind of lower? It could be over anything.
You know what's funny is that we had mentioned before. You said common time is 4/4, and
right.
Pretty much 4/4 and 2/4 would be more common times. But anything else, like, it's called odd time usually. So I guess compound time 3/4
is a waltz considered odd time? I guess it is, right?
I guess so, because it's in 3. But the term odd makes it seem odd. You know what I mean? It makes it sound, but it's really just. I guess it depends how you look at it, but it's not common, I guess. So in our culture, at least, to play in 7 or 7/16 or 15 beats per measure or so.
Well, the issue, one thing worth mentioning too, and just if we're being being pedantic, like. Like you mentioned 3, that's what's tricky, because you can feel the 1, or like if you're doing marches, you can count them in 2 even if they're in 6 or 12. Like when you conduct, or especially being in the army band, like a lot of stuff, you're doing all these marches, like you're just feeling it in 2. You're not going to count every 6, all 6 beats. So when you have things that are divisible by 4 or 2 rather, they're not. I mean, yeah, sure, if 3 is an odd number, okay, we can. That's obvious, like that's math, but. We understand how to feel that. Like as humans, that's very common for us to feel that particular pulse, and you can just feel the 1. See, like so every 4 bars, could be, like you could be kind of feeling that like 4 quarter notes or whatever. But more specifically to like again like 6/8 marches and stuff, they're often counted in 2. Anyways, so those, though odd, are. We can still kind of feel them like they're 2.
Right, you're subdividing.
So and I think that's kind of what you were kind of saying, like, sure, it's odd, but it's really not that bad,
Yeah.
But 5/4, 7/4, 5/8, 7/8, especially transitioning from like a measure 4/4 to 3/8, you're going to flip, it flips the beat in a way or whatever. Mm-hmm. So that's a consideration. But yeah, in 16, well, Steve, I'll let you use a couple ways. You could do an Indian solfege, or you could do it in regular standard.
Sure. Yeah, if you have 16th notes, or 16 notes, you can group them, any whatever adds up to 16,
Right.
So 3 5s and a 1, or however you want to group it.
It's the harmony, right? Where's the emphasis in the music or whatever?
Exactly,
right?
what makes the most musical sense. But getting back to what we're talking about with the Afro-Cuban, you'll even see that with like composers like Daniel Perez or Antonio Sanchez, who's a master at that. I remember seeing them play. And so, remember the clave I was telling you about, like 1, the rumba clave, 3/2, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and 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 that's a common time, quote unquote. But Danilo, I heard him do it. He added a beat to that clave, so which made it really amazing. He put it in an odd meter, something that wasn't in an odd meter before. So you'll hear that. So being familiar with odd meters is common today.
This is actually something I wanted to ask you about, Steve. I mean, now that I have him here, I got all this wealth of knowledge.
Right.
I'm going to have to be selfish. Okay, so let me put this correctly. When you're putting clave, whatever it is, 3/2, 2/3, rumba, in son or rumba into an odd meter, like, okay, let's say we're doing in 5, like. I guess there's a fairly intuitive way to do it, but I mean, has anyone ever been like, oh, no, that's not right? But well, how do you know? Because it never really existed, right? Like, I mean, who decided that this is what clave is? And again, I know this is probably an intuitive approach, but what is an example of like, let's do 2/3, maybe in 5, and 2/3 and 7, or something like that.
All right.
And it's okay if I'm like,
Yeah, no, I mean, like, well, no, that's a great question. That's a great point. I mean, to be honest with you, I think what's, in the end, when you're composing something, what makes the most musical sense and what feels good to you? Because I've heard, Steve Coleman play, and what the heck, I'm listening to it, I'm like, what is going on here? I don't know. But it feels amazing. You know what I mean?
Is that the Tao of Mad Fat? Is that album?
Yeah, I'm thinking of, I think it's called Black Science, maybe the one I'm thinking of. But man, I mean, so many of his records, I mean, that's an older record, so many records are amazing. So as long as it feels good, I mean, we're not like...
What's the name of that record, just so we can check it out as well?
It's Steve Coleman and 5 Elements, and the record I'm talking about, I believe it's called Black Science, and then Chris was talking about a record.
The Tao of Mad Fat, which is Gene Lake on the drums, and actually one of my favorite albums. It's great.
I think Marvin Smitty Smith is on the one I'm talking about.
Oh, really?
I think.
That's awesome.
Yeah. But yeah, it's incredible. He's for odd meters and odd times, and almost like his music. When you listen to Steve Coleman's music, it's you really. It's almost like it's many things going on at once. So you have to kind of really almost learn it by ear, I would say. And you have to really know it by ear. Same with Tigran. Tigran's music.
I'm kind of curious, Steve. When I think especially in the 20th century, Western classical music had an explosion of exploration with odd time signatures. We had Stravinsky's Rite of Spring. Is that a piece you've looked at? Because I know that has some very interesting meter things going on.
Actually, yes, I had to conduct. We had to conduct that. I had to. It was in my conducting class. Believe it or not, at Berkeley. But
that's a very famous song. Maybe you could explain to the listeners what's so significant about the rhythm in that song. Or that song, like he's singing.
Yeah, right. That song goes like this. Now, compound meters, the different meters going on.
And by the way, too, Tony Williams, the great Tony Williams, was heavily influenced by Stravinsky. In fact, that was I think the main person he cited when he started the Lifetime group with. Was it Alan Holdsworth that played with Tony Williams Lifetime? I can't remember, but I'm pretty sure it was. Yeah. And of course, the great tune Protocosmos, which, listen to that, more deceptive than you think. It's such a simple melody. Wow. But
Protocosmos, is that Tony Williams?
Yes, Tony Williams' Lifetime. And Tony Williams' Lifetime group. And he was heavily influenced by Stravinsky, which, again, I guess you could argue there's polyrhythms that are happening. There's metric modulation. There's also, polytonality. And of course, a lot of people that are aware Stravinsky, and again, I'm getting a little bit out of my element because I'm not a classical buff and I'm not even a classical percussionist or orchestral percussionist. But that, obviously, we know that there was riots because of that. And, that was, it was innovative but very dangerous way to write, too, because not just because the rhythmic complexity could be kind of jarring or just very different, but harmonically, melodically, too, it was dissonant.
Yeah, I think it was a polychord, that big chord that keeps repeating is like an E or an E flat mixed together.
Yeah. It's a very interesting piece. And I think that it's it could also be the rite of passage, too, for a lot of drummers. At some point, you have to kind of dissect a little bit of that when you really get into this stuff. And that's a great demonstration of, rhythmic complexity, for sure. But one thing I do want to do, Nick, is I want to get, again, I'm being selfish, I want to get this demonstration of
Let's hear it.
Any odd meter clave applied to it.
Okay.
All right. Okay. Basically, the ones that I'm familiar with are the ones that I learned from listening to Danilo Perez's music, the Panamanian pianist Danilo Perez. And at the time when I was studying at Berkeley, or right after Berkeley, I was fortunate to record with and play with and practice with Antonio Sanchez, who was playing with Danilo at the time. So I remember one night I had a gig and Antonio came to my gig and I had played some samba piece or something, and the next day we were in our practice room and he asked me, man, what was that thing you were playing? And I played it, and then he sat down and played it right away, and he sounded amazing at it. And I said, okay, man, well, what are you working on? He said, well, I'm working on this clave and 7, and it was just he was working on this way back then, and if you want to check out Antonio Sanchez, please do online. But there's a modern drummer festival that he's on, that he demonstrates a lot of this clave stuff. But I will do my best to demonstrate for you right now.
Please.
Okay, here's one that I heard. So I'll first play, this one is in 7 or 14 beats. And it's 2-3. So like the 2-3 song clave sounds like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, and 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, and 2, and 3, and 4. So what? To put this in 7, I'll just count it and do my best to play. 1. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna tell you right now, is on the 3 side that becomes the 1. So it's just making it probably more confusing. So I'll just play it. So 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, and, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 20, and 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 20, and 5, 6, 7.
So what you're doing is you're playing a clave over 7.
Yeah, it's like 14 total. It's what happens is it's like a 2-3 clave, but the 3 becomes the 1 of the 7, and then you play like a 3-2 rumba clave. So it's basically 2 claves back to back. And it's the way I'm explaining it is probably really, really complicated, but
I think I get it. I think.
And it's what's interesting though is because I occasionally, and I know Steve absolutely has this happening because he's teaching college level students. They'll ask these questions. Like, actually, one thing I wanted to clarify too. We just thrown so much information out there, and it's like, and I have to take some responsibility. I'm very excited, obviously having Steve, and we're just so many things I want to clarify. And one thing we had kind of terminology we were kind of going back and forth about was like multimeter versus compound.
Okay.
And obviously multimeter is just, again, just to clarify, multimeter is just you have a bunch of different meters, like a mixture of time signatures in a piece of music. And then compound is like when you can divide, something into, again, like we were talking about 6/8 marches and stuff. Instead of counting 6 beats, you can just divide it into 2. So compound meter, 9/8 or something, right? You can break that into 3.
Oh, okay, so it's different then.
Yeah.
Okay, I see. So multimeters is what we were talking about earlier.
Yeah. So and
Okay.
again, one other thing it's tricky too is you have a lot of terms that you could say something like what happens a lot, like, well, even that, like time signature versus meter. There's multiple names for multiple things, and like we do a lot of rhythmic transposition and stuff too. And like you'll look at one rhythm, it's like, wait, that sounds just like like this, but that's 8ths and quarters, and that was 16ths and 8ths. And I was like, how does that happen?
Right.
And it's very interesting because what ends up happening is once you get a full wealth of this information, you as Steve was saying, it's actually often easier to do it by ear. Like once you get good enough at it, and you might feel more secure writing it out, but it's true. It's often like, whoa, this is kind of hard to actually conceptualize once you've made it internal, and once you internalize it.
That's a question actually, Steve. I have for you. Is there is there a finite number of polyrhythms, or is it just really infinite that you can come up with plenty of new ideas?
I would say it's infinite, and I think it's fun to experiment. And at the end of the day, it all comes down to music and what makes most sense musically. I just wanted to mention this other band because it's kind of taking a left, but
No,
for your listeners, this is another genre of music, but the band Meshuggah. If you want to talk about rhythmic, what is going on here?
Wait, have you heard Bill Burr's explanation?
I heard that.
Did I tell you? Oh my goodness! So for this is something fun. So Bill Burr also has a hilarious podcast. Bill Burr is a comedian, and he's a drummer, and he actually studies with Dave Elick, who's a great drummer, played with the Mars Volta, and he went to go see Meshuggah with Dave, and I think Benny Greb too. I think he hangs with Benny Greb, who's like one of the great drummers.
One of the greats.
And it's his explanation of the tune "Bleed," which is a fantastic tune. Thomas Hockey, I don't know how to say his name. A great, but yeah, absolutely. Like it's the funniest explanation you'll ever hear of a particular drum part. We have Meshuggah again, a great band.
Oh, great! Yeah, working.
Meshuggah, I'm not familiar. I've heard the name. What genre are they?
It's
heavy metal.
Yeah. I think that's what I was thinking. It's a heavy metal band.
But they're serious dudes.
It's very unique sounding. I mean, now it's become, you'll hear other bands sounding like that, but at least to me, I've never heard a band play like that. And I think it just came from them playing so much together and playing, creating sequences and playing, giving, already MP3s or sequences to each other, and then coming up with parts that way. Because it's not one of those bands where you're going to get, Thomas Hack or I'm sorry to pronounce his name incorrectly, but like Thomas is not going to say, "Hey man, I can't make the gig tonight. Don't worry, there's charts. You can go into site reading." It's not one of those gigs where that's not going to happen.
That's
a wrap. You see that a lot with a lot of bands now. It's where you're not going to be able to. A lot of the rhythmic stuff, it's just going to be to sight read. It's going to be almost impossible.
You need months of preparation.
Yeah, you need to really prepare for that.
Well, see, that's what I really, Nick. This is what I found really unique about Steve. Now, Steve is a great jazz drummer. He's really like, and this is me. I mean, this is not just me saying. This is a lot of other drummers and musicians in the area. He's like, one of the top drummers, period, and especially in Boston. I don't know about outside of that, but in Boston and certainly one of the great jazz drummers around here. And I have students that come into, like, really, parents of students, non-musicians that rave about him. They go see him at different venues. But what I really admire is that he's a great jazz drummer with great touch. I mean, his dynamics are absolutely incredible. I've yet to meet someone that has the ability to play with that type of touch and feel. But he's really into like metal. He's really into rhythm and like.
Are you for real?
Yes, it's cool to see. It's cool to see them integrate that. I'm always like, when's he gonna put something in there?
That's really cool. I like that. It shows eclecticism. It shows an openness, and it really shows a great respect for music in general. Because it's you're respecting the notes, you're respecting the rhythms, no matter where the source is from. Actually, I found it funny that I read somewhere that Donny Hathaway, the great soul singer, was a huge fan of country and western. I had no idea.
Well, yeah, it's all music, and if you just keep an open mind to it, it's really just it's all music. So.
I have one question for you, Steve. Now, we've been talking specifically about rhythms, but really, all instrumentalists should really learn these concepts. I mean, I really believe that it's not just something for drummers to do, because I've always been inspired by Charlie Parker and his rhythmic freedom and his phrasing. And it's true, right? There's no reason why a non-drummer could pick up a drumming book or perhaps Advanced Rhythmic Concepts for the Modern Drummer and try to apply these things to their instrument, right?
Yes, I would say so. My books are like, the reason why the title is Advanced Rhythmic Concepts for the Modern Drummer is because I was thinking of a title, and I just wanted to make something to be clear to people that the book is pretty advanced. So if you're a beginner, you could pick it up and you could work on it, and it's really just a series of accents and notes that you can work on right away. But definitely there are other avenues to explore. Now I'm not like telling people not to buy my book, but my book is.
They'll buy it. Trust me. It's a book for the ages. Buy this book. It's a book for the ages.
Definitely, it's definitely advanced rhythmically. But I think to keep in mind that the more music you can listen to, like we spoke about Cuban rumba, African music, modern guys today like Dan Weiss or Tigran Hamasoulian, Meshuggah. You mentioned Mark Juliana, guys, Tony Williams, all these kinds of music that if you have that in your ear, it's going to make it easier. So it becomes more of instead of a technical book exercise, it becomes more of a life musical thing. So listening to music and listen to Zakir Hussain, tabla, listen to Cuban rumba. I've already said that.
Mentioned. Actually, Steve, you conduct master classes, clinics for non-drummers too, right? I've read that you've conducted rhythmic concepts for musicians. Period.
Yeah, I think singing is really important. I mean, I'm not a singer, but if you can sing rhythms, or sing a beat, or sing a groove, or sing a subdivision, or sing Konnakol, or sing your part if you're a bass player or a horn player. That really helps. Singing is
Why is that?
You're making the connection between you and the music, and I think you get a deeper understanding, a deeper knowledge, and
it's a different muscle, right? Like
it is a different muscle.
You and Mark Walker back when I was at Berkeley said that I should do that, and I didn't listen. And then because he was big on that, and then finally I went to Steve, and I asked the same thing. I had a baby, and I'm like, well, I can't practice drums in front of my newborn. He goes, well, why don't you try singing the parts, clapping and singing these rhythms? And I started doing that more, and my everything improved. My time improved. My understanding of the rhythms improved, and I was always curious why saying your part, whether it's with proper, 1E and a 2, Western syllables or Indian syllables, or just making up sounds, whatever you want.
I think you want the deeper you can get the music inside of you, the better. I think Sonny Rollins, the great saxophonist, said that he's tried to think while playing music, and he can't think. When you think, that's when you want to get the music so it becomes in your subconscious.
Steve, is these Western syllables versus perhaps these Indian syllables, would you say one is better or or they're just different?
I think, for me, growing up, in the States, I think it's both are incredible. I think both are incredible. I'm just scratching the surface with the Konnakol, but that really is an incredible system of rhythm. And
does Western music have music with plenty of 30-second notes as well, much like Indian music? Do we have precedent in Western music?
I would say not to my knowledge. No.
Are you saying Nick? Are you saying like a big sort of blend of subdivisions, especially the
exactly.
ones,
I'm wondering does the Western rhythmic tradition, does it have pieces that have 30-second notes?
I would say no. I mean, like groupings like 5s and 7s and 9s and 11s and 13s. I would say no. Not in popular music. Not in popular music.
Again, maybe like progressive music or maybe jazz and things like that, but not the stuff you hear on the radio.
There's one other drummer I have to mention that while we're talking about this quickly is Vinnie Colaiuta.
Of course.
To check him out with of course. Talk about metric modulation and
the man, the myth, the legend.
Yeah, I mean the guy. I was checking out his website, 32 pages of discography, and I gotta say that to play with like Celine Dion, like a pop thing, and then to do his studio stuff in movies and commercials, but then also he worked on his music his whole life, so he's able to play, how he plays. He wasn't, he didn't just get the check and do the session, which is probably really challenging in itself to get a good sound, to get a good groove, to play simply or play what's called for. But he also, if you check out, Vinnie with Chick Corea in Japan, or even Vinnie with Sting on some of the live stuff, or Herbie now, he's just always growing and always incredible and so consistent. So I had to just mention him as well.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely a really important... I mean, of course, there's Weckl and all these guys too, but I mean, he really is... what I admire most is... maybe I found similar to Buddy Rich is that as good as they are, well, even like yourself included, just keep going. This is actually something I admire about Steve too. Like, he's constantly just working, constantly gigging, constantly putting out these books, these videos. And
that's the mark of a great a teacher you can trust, really, with credibility.
That's right. Yeah, and then more importantly, it's also I also can't help but again be selfish and think, could you guys take a break for a few months so I can catch up? Give me a chance here.
Steve, you are certainly a phenomenal musician. We're so glad that you agreed to come on the show. I can't believe the hour has just gone by like that. It feels like just 5 minutes. I mean, I've been having a phenomenal time, and I really hope Steve, that you can come back to the show. Please tell our audience where we can find you and find your work.
Oh. First of all, Nick and Chris, thanks for having me on your show. It's been a real pleasure, and I'd love to come back anytime. And my books are available on Amazon.com. The name of the book is Advanced Rhythmic Concepts for the Modern Drummer. There's Volume 1 and there's Volume 2. They're available on Amazon.com. And I also have a website that's fairly new. It's still under construction, but you can check it out.
We'll definitely have the link in the show notes page, so don't worry about that.
Thank you. Yeah, it's myname.com, stevelangone.com.
Fantastic. Steve, and Chris, thanks so much for helping out on the show. Where can we find more about you, Chris?
Oh, you can just go to CambridgeArtsAcademy.com. And that's the school I run, and we'll or go to our Facebook page, Cambridge Arts Academy. and you can find any information on me or the school there as well.
Fantastic. Well, you gentlemen have been absolutely wonderful for the broadcast. I am so thrilled that you guys came on. It's been such a blitz of an hour, and there's just so many things. I have so many more questions, but unfortunately we'll have to stop it here. Steve, please come back again soon to the show, and and we will definitely continue. There's so much more to be said. I feel like we've just scratched the surface.
Thank you so much, Nick.
Take care now. Bye, everybody.